Every morning at 6:15 sharp, the bell above the diner door rang as an old man stepped inside. Same worn-out navy coat, same quiet nod to the waitress. And always the same seat-back corner booth, facing the window where he could see the street and everyone who walked in. His name was Henry Cole. To most folks in Belridge, he was just the man in the corner, quiet, polite, and invisible. But what if I told you that this man, whose hands now trembled while holding his coffee mug, once held secrets that shaped nations? That behind those weathered eyes lived a story no one dared imagine? And one day, that quiet corner booth would become the stage for a final act of courage won last mission, not of war or espionage, but of kindness. For nearly 5 years, Henry had been a fixture at Miller's Diner. Locals would sometimes whisper about him. He used to be a lawyer, or a banker maybe. Others said he was just a lonely old man with nowhere else to go. The waitstaff liked him well enough. He never asked for much, just black coffee, eggs over easy, and the crossword from yesterday's paper. He never used a cell phone, paid in cash, spoke only when spoken to. There was a kind of softness in the way he smiled, but behind it, if you looked close enough, you could sense a guarded edge, like a man forever waiting for the other shoe to drop. "Morning, Henry," said Margot one Tuesday, pouring his coffee. "You know, you're our most loyal customer." He gave a soft chuckle. "Routine keeps me grounded," he replied, voice gravelly but warm. Outside, the streets were slick with snowmelt. Inside, the hum of the jukebox, the clang of spatulas, and idle conversation filled the air. Ordinary day, ordinary town. Until 8:23 a.m. That's when the door slammed open. A man in a ski mask stormed in, waving a pistol. "Hands up, all of you!" he yelled, voice shaking, too young, too frantic. A woman screamed. Dishes crashed. The cook ducked behind the grill. Margot froze. But Henry didn't move. Not an inch. He simply folded his paper, calmly stood up, and began walking slow toward the armed man. Everyone else ducked behind booths. The robber shouted again, his hand trembling. "Back off, don't make me." And then Henry spoke, calm, controlled. "You don't want to do this, son." The man flinched. "I said stay back." Henry took another step, eyes steady. "You're scared. I can see that. But you're not a killer. I can help you." No one in that diner could have predicted what happened next. In a blur, Henry disarmed the man, twisted his wrist with precision, and guided him to the floor face down without violence, like clockwork. Smooth, clinical. The gun slid under a table. The place was silent, just the man's sobs echoing as sirens wailed in the distance. Who was this man? And what had he just revealed? Have you ever looked at someone and wondered what stories their silence hides? The news was all over town by lunchtime. Elderly man stops robbery, the headlines read. But Henry didn't stick around for praise. He vanished for 2 days, gone from the booth, gone from the streets. Gone like a ghost. Then, late Thursday evening, Margot found a letter at the diner's doorstep. It was addressed to her handwritten, neat cursive. Inside, a note. "There's something I never finished. I have to try. Thank you for the kindness you showed a stranger. H.C." Attached was a photograph, black and white, 2 young boys in front of an orphanage, arms around each other. Margot showed the photo to the sheriff, then the librarian, then the mayor. No one recognized the boys. But someone remembered Henry once receiving a Kala rare thing and saying, "He doesn't know I'm alive. It's better that way." Suddenly, the quiet man had a mystery attached to his name, and a missing piece of his past was rising to the surface. It turns out, Henry Cole wasn't just some retiree hiding in plain sight. Decades ago, he was part of an elite U.S. intelligence unit during the Cold War high-risk, deep cover operations. But one mission broke him. In Berlin, 1982, he was assigned to extract a children orphan boy named Emil who'd been groomed by a hostile regime. Emil wasn't a target. He was family, a child Henry had once promised to protect. But orders changed, politics shifted, and Emil vanished before Henry could reach him. Henry never forgave himself. After the war ended, he walked away from everything: career, name, family. He wandered for years, then settled into obscurity in Belridge, burying the guilt beneath routines and crossword puzzles. Until the robbery, until the boy in the ski mask. Because when Henry looked into his eyes, he saw Emil. Or who Emil could have been: lost, angry, desperate. It shook him to the core, and it awakened something he thought had died long ago. He had to find Emil, to make it right. Have you ever felt the weight of unfinished promises haunting your quietest moments? Tracking someone across continents is hard at any age, but for a man pushing 80, it's near impossible. Still, Henry tried. He made calls to old contacts, visited embassies, and slept in buses and hostels. Every lead was a dead end. Until a translator in Prague remembered a boy named Emil Koltakin from the streets, later became a teacher, then disappeared during the war in Kosovo. Another dead end. Or so it seemed. On a stormy morning in a rural part of Montenegro, Henry finally found him. Not the child he remembered, but a grown man gray at the temples, scar along his cheek, eyes hard from a life of survival. He ran a community school for displaced families, refugees, orphans, the forgotten. "Emil?" Henry asked, voice trembling. The man turned, studied him, then narrowed his eyes. "Do I know you?" Henry reached into his coat, pulled out the old photo of the two boys, arm in arm. Emil's face changed. "I waited," Henry whispered. "But I couldn't save you then. Two failed you." Emil stood in silence. Then, slowly, he stepped forward and hugged the man who had once promised to protect him. Neither spoke for a long while. Sometimes, forgiveness doesn't come with words. Sometimes, it comes with a single, trembling embrace. What would you give to heal a wound you've carried for decades? Henry returned to Belridge a month later, weaker, thinner, but lighter. He went back to his booth just once and left a final envelope with Margot. Inside was another letter. "I spent most of my life watching people walk by, afraid to get close, but now I know kindness is the only thing that lasts. That boy I saved. He's building a life of purpose. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's the real mission I was meant to finish." He died peacefully 2 weeks later in his sleep. No ceremony, no fanfare. But on the day of his passing, dozens of people from across the town, people he had quietly helped, listened to, tipped kindly, smiled at, gathered outside the diner, and placed candles by his booth. One of them was the young man who tried to rob the place. He'd been given a second chance. Got help, got clean, now working as a mechanic and studying part-time. And every week, he leaves a cup of black coffee at the corner booth. Have you ever known someone whose smallest kindness changed your entire life? Henry Cole may have been a ghost to most, But in the end, he became something far more enduring, proof that it's never too late to make peace with the past, or to reach out with compassion, even when it costs you everything. Because sometimes the quietest people are carrying the loudest stories, and sometimes the final mission is simply to love. If this story moved you, take a moment today to reach out to someone you've lost touch with. Forgive where you can, heal what's left. Because kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change everything. If you believe in the power